This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning and welcome to an epic start to our sunrise safari. We just managed to locate this Avoca male, looks like dark mane. He has been just a treat to spend time with this morning. He was roaring a little bit earlier, but I think he is now just going to be taking it easy. This lovely open patch, not too far from the dam. You may have heard him on the dam cam. But what a great start to our morning to find him. My name is David Hancock, and on camera we have BK. And we are going to be chilling with this dude this morning, because it doesn't get any better than this. And apologies for a delay in kids' drive there, but it appears everything is now sorted out. Remember, kids, please send in your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. We'd love to hear from you. And it is a great start to the morning. We were sitting in the parking lot and listening to this boy roaring. Tristan and I are taking guesses on where the location was, and we weren't too far off. And he has been through the wars. I see he's still limping on that front right leg by the looks of it. Perhaps injured in a hunt. I'm not sure how he got injured, but these are tenacious cats and they will recover. They just need a bit of rest. Well, let's see what Tristan is up to. I'm sure he's out and about and I'd love to say good morning.
Well, at this stage, David, I'm not really sure. Alex and I have been discussing what we're going to be doing and what we're going to end up getting ourselves into for the morning. But before I tell you all of that, as David mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera, as I've mentioned, is Alex this morning. So we're going to try and find something. It is very cold this morning, far colder than it was yesterday morning. I don't think it's going to be a cold day, but it's just a crisp morning, and it's making the noses run and the hands cold, but it's a good kind of temperature for movement of animals, so I'm hoping that things will still be on the move. I did find tracks for Mulawati, but he went into an area where it's just not going to be possible. It's the same area that Kalamba keeps going into north of Gallagher Pan. I went and did a big loop around, no tracks coming out that I can see, and so I'm afraid there's not much more we can do with that particular one. He goes into places like that. He's not going to allow me to off-road and stay in one spot like one of our relaxed leopards, unfortunately. So I'm not sure we're going to go look for him, but what I do want to do, and what I am doing currently, is I'm just patrolling this eastern side of Djuma and checking the roads here, because I'm trying to see where Thandi went from yesterday. Ultimately she should have gone back towards the cubs, but apparently somebody's already driven Cheetah Cut Line and they say there's no tracks for her going that direction. There's tracks for a leopard here though. This is a male leopard, but not fresh. They don't look too fresh anyway, so I don't think those are the ones we're looking for. Sarah Tingana is also, taking us all over the place, but the thing is watching Mulawati yesterday, I mean, he was sawing full on at the dam, and that's right at the core of where we used to kind of see a Tingana all the time. But what's interesting is that 2 days ago, Tingana was seen very close to the dam, and it was a complete positive identification that it was Tingana. So, it's weird to see how overlapped the two of them are at the moment. And I suspect that Mulawati's presence is what's causing Tingana to be a little bit more on the sort of shy side, if you want to call it that, or be a little bit more sort of less seen is probably a better way than what we're seeing at the moment. You know, he used to be a lot more vocal. We used to see him a lot more ambling all over Djuma, and now Mulawati seems to be the one that's kind of doing much of the movement, and Tingana's just in every now and then. I still have no idea where Tingana went from the other day, because his last tracks are in the Mulawati and then nothing. We haven't found any tracks since then indicating that he's moved away. So I don't know where he went or how he got there, but evidently he's moved a little bit and gone somewhere else. I just got to try and figure out where. But what intrigues me is Thandi in all of this. She's not exactly, you know, bringing her cubs into this area, even though Mulawati's here. And I wonder if that's the reason why, is because she keeps hearing two different males calling kind of central Djuma. And so for her, it's better to try and just go Torchwood, where she knows there's only one of them really patrolling. I don't know which one she's aligning herself with, but she can kind of just hide out there and away from where the border zone of what could be potential conflict, and then would be quite dangerous for her cubs. So it explains why she's spending so much time further east. I really was hoping that yesterday she found a new den site for her little ones and went to go and fetch them. Kathy, who's 12 years old, you're saying you're really finding these leopard dynamics interesting. It is very interesting at the moment. It's a very different leopard dynamic than what we had a year ago. You know, a year ago we were quite settled. We had Hosana here, we had Tingana, we had Thandi, Tlalamba, and everybody was fairly kind of in a place, and we knew where everyone was, and it was all okay. And it was very constant in our areas that we were finding each leopard. And then, you know, fast forward to now, we can see a massive change, and it just goes to show you how male leopards are huge drivers of change within an area, even for females. Most people will say females' territories don't change, but that's not true. Female territories do change, and they drift and they move quite a lot. If you take Thandi, for example, to give you an idea, she initially started out far to the east as a territorial female. In front of Nkoro Camp is where she had her first litter of cubs. Since then, she has slowly come westwards, with each litter basically has pushed westwards further and further. And that's not her being forced by female leopards, because at the end of the day, her offspring that she had was boys for the first two. So she had Wabayiza and Bahuti, and they kind of pushed, you know, all over the place they went, but she wasn't being pushed by her boys. She was just literally moving as territory opened up and she became stronger and physically could take. And then so her territory has changed and come into Djuma, and now back going east towards Torchwood. So it's really interesting to watch how fluid the dynamic of leopards are and how their movements change. Even males and females, it's not just the males that are so different, but the dynamic now is super interesting, and it's going to be really intriguing to see how it plays out by the end of the winter. As it becomes really dry and everything's concentrating around certain water holes, there's bound to be some conflict at some point if we continue to go the way we are. Anyway, we're going to try and see if we can find Thandi somewhere here, like I say, or signs that she maybe went back to the cubs or brought the cubs to us. And so while we do that, let's send you across to Sean for the first time this morning at And Beyond Ngala and see what his plans are.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a suspiciously warm And Beyond Ngala. You'll be with myself, Sean, this morning, and we still got OD behind the camera, hard at work. So, with the technical difficulties, it actually gave us some extra time to do some work, to do some tracking. So, what we've done is we've heard that herd of buffalo that Rowan saw yesterday. Now, they're off to our left-hand side of here somewhere. We also got tracks of at least 3 or 4 lions heading in that same direction. So now, remember last night Romance was saying that potentially that herd, that the lions might be following that herd of buffalo. You see this area here is quite thick, but as you go further inside there, it does open up quite a lot. And that's probably where the buffalo would have gone to sleep. in a nice open area because that's where they feel it's safer for them. They'll move away from this thick area because here there's too much camouflage for the pride of lions, so they will move further into the clearings. So I think the lions went in there last night in an attempt to hunt. We heard them roaring quite late last night, maybe like 9:30. Well, Hope, we're just talking, so 7-year-old Hope wants to know how loud is the lion's roar. So Hope, I heard it from inside my bed. So I was lying in my bed and the lions must have been maybe 2.5 kilometers away. That's where I heard it, and it was quite loud in my room. I would say, depending, Hope, on what's between you and the lion, you could probably hear it from 5, 6, 7 kilometers away. So it's very, very loud, Hope. It's very, very loud. You know, another lion, they can hear that noise from 10, 12 kilometers away. So it's very intimidating when they do roar, especially when the whole pride roars. So that's what we heard last night, was the entire pride roaring together. And I mean, even 2.5 kilometers away, you still get a few shivers. Really awesome. So what we did, as I say, we have dropped Romance. He's walking into what we call the block. So the block is the area in between all of the roads. And he's walking there towards where we heard the buffalo noise. He's going to see. And he's going to see if he can find any sign of that herd of buffaloes, and then hopefully narrow down exactly where the lions are. It'll still be cool to see the buffaloes. But while we're looking, while we're searching, what we're going to do is send you over to Dylan at the Tswalu Kalahari, see what he has.
Good morning everyone from another glorious day at Tswalu Kalahari. John Gray behind the camera there, and Dylan, myself. It's just going to be another magical day out here. We've changed our tack a little bit. We're going to be waiting at the burrow system for the meerkats to come up. But in the meantime, we just want to show you this incredible atmospheric phenomenon that you can see now. Yonder is just going to scan from the right-hand side right across to the left. And what you're going to see is this beautiful dark blue with pink above it, this dark blue strip. But it's very, very narrow on the right and then broadening out and then fading out to the left-hand side again. And what that is absolutely beautiful to see it out there. It's pretty incredible. That's called the umbra. It's actually the shadow of the earth being cast into the atmosphere. So the sun is still behind the mountains. It's still rising out towards the east over there. But while it's doing that, it's actually casting a huge shadow of the earth right up into the atmosphere. And you'll actually see that as the sun rises, that'll become less and less and less distinct and eventually fade. So that's just an interesting atmospheric phenomenon that we're seeing here early in the morning at this time. There's just so much to see out there. Jeez. Glad you can all join us this morning again. It's always so exciting coming out. You never know what you're going to find. New day, new morning. So the dish, it's stunning is the word. It's absolutely, stunning, sublime, magnificent, gorgeous, beautiful. It's all of that and more. So the meerkat burrows are just in front of us over here. And so the ones that we're going to be looking at, it's from where we're standing here, it's the burrows on the further side that we're going to be looking at. There's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row on the far end over there. So we're going to be setting up on this side. We'll see if we can get some nice backlighting for those of you interested in photography and that, to show you how that works. But yeah, we're just going to sit and be patient. But in the meantime, head back down to the sands for some lions with David.
Talking about backlighting, the sun is rising And that golden light is slowly starting to fall upon this majestic cat. He's just lifted his head and looked over to the south there. Perhaps he hears one of his brothers calling. We didn't hear anything, but of course his hearing is far superior to ours. Esri, 3 years old, welcome to the show. Thank you for your question. You've asked, how do lions roar? How do they make that bellowing sound? That's a very good question. Lions are very strong. Let's quickly go over to Tristan and we'll answer your question shortly. He's got something very cool.
Indeed, the two young males are being naughty. So watch here. Just listen to the tusks clashing when they hit each other. It's the coolest sound. They've been play fighting 3 young bulls. Like I say, it's play fighting. It's not anything serious, but it's funny to watch these guys because they get themselves into these games, particularly the young males, where they'll push each other around, and often it's a bigger one kind of hassling a younger one, and they literally are just practicing for later in life when unfortunately they're going to have to really do this for real, which is a lot more terrifying. Here they're just bonding, and like I say, they're kind of almost practicing techniques in a way. It's very common to see in young animals play fighting. So if you see with lion cubs or leopard cubs or even things like impalas, when they're young, they'll pretend to fight and kind of clash horns, and it's the same with these guys. It just builds up a bit of muscle memory, and they start to strengthen certain muscles, and also it releases a little bit of that testosterone that's starting to flush through, these teenage eddies. They get rid of a bit of energy and a bit of pent-up testosterone as they push each other around. Now, it's a really nice sized herd. It's just that they're quite spread out. All right, sounds like the male lion is roaring, so let's quickly send you across to him.
Well, folks, it just does not get better than that. He's just let off his terrific roar. Mere meters away from us, and the sound is just out of this world. I'm sure you can hear it loud and clear on your screens back home, but to be here 5 meters from this huge male lion roaring is just an experience. It's difficult to explain. You can literally feel the vibration in your chest as he emits those bellowing roars. They are so loud, up to 114 decibels that they can pump out with those super powerful vocal cords. It's not a feeling that you really hear. You literally feel that. It's like standing next to a loud bass drum. It reverberates in your chest. What a privilege. Ezra, as if on cue, Mr. Lion here wanted to show you how he roars. And you've asked, how do they roar so loudly? Well, they have very unique vocal cords that are a little bit different to other animals. Most animals have a bit of a triangular vocal fold or vocal cord. That's tissue and cartilage and stuff called collagen inside their throat area that vibrates with air passing over it. And lions have it a little bit larger, it's a bit more square, so it makes it easier for it to vibrate when air passes over it, and it requires less air to make a louder sound, so that's why they can roar so loudly. And that's important for them because they move very large distances. They have to be able to communicate with each other over a long distance out here in the bush. And he's now called, perhaps to one of his brothers, and that's why you can see him listening to see if he gets a response. Sophia, you're 9 years old. You commented that was amazing. Well, Sophia, I agree with you completely. It was so cool. I think it's one of my favorite things in the bush, if not my absolute favorite, to be this close to a roaring male lion. You know how they say, when a lion looks into your eyes, it kind of goes into your soul. Well, when a lion roars, it definitely goes into you. Straight to your body. Those vibrations are just incredible to experience. Well, we're going to be here enjoying this boy, and we'll no doubt be able to spend a bit more time with him soon, but let's send you back over to Tristan in the meantime with his elephant.
It did not rudely interrupt me at all. It was a lovely noise to hear. I could hear it all the way from where I am at the moment. So it was very nice to hear those big booming roars filling the cold morning air, especially when you're in the company of elephants as well. It's really nice kind of having that. Nothing can make it feel more Africa than sitting with elephants and hearing lions roar. It's been very, very pleasant, so it wasn't rudely interrupted. And I'm glad we actually caught it because, with lion roars, it's sometimes a little bit tricky for us. With getting you across to the other person, often the lions can be finished by the time it happens. And so I'm just glad that we got across quick enough that everyone could hear, because it is the most incredible sound, particularly when you're close like that. Those booming roars, and it's almost like you feel your chest vibrate as these males belt it out. I must be honest, there's something about a male lion roaring that is quite something. But when you add more male lions together, so more than one, it gets even better. I'll never forget the first time I ever heard the 6 Mapogos roaring. Those 6 male lions was just unbelievable. There were 4 on one side of the car and 2 on the other side of the car, so they were kind of surrounding the vehicle, and the roars that they let out, it's just insane. The doors were actually sort of vibrating and shivering, and you could actually hear the rattling of the door as the 6 of them were roaring. It was unbelievable. So, when you get multiple males together, it really is. So you can imagine that's a voca male, and then add another 5 of them together in the same spot, and then you can get an idea of just how loud those roars can actually be. Interestingly enough, though, with that male lion roaring, you would think that everything else in the area would be a little bit more kind of shy and a little nervous. These elephants did not even bat an eyelid at that roar. They were just like, whatever, that male can roar. They didn't care. They're walking actually in the direction of where he is. And it just goes to show that everyone always thinks male lions are the big kind of bosses of the African wilderness, and they're not. I'm afraid lions like to think that they are, but they are certainly the bosses of the predator world, but they are not in terms of the general scheme of things. Elephants, being the size that they are, typically will bully lions all over the place and are very seldom perturbed by lions unless they are very, very close by. If that male, let's say, had to walk where I am right now and start roaring, then you would see them all swing around and you'd see the females coming forward and probably chasing him off a little bit. But at that distance that they're at, these guys don't care at all, and you'll find that even they'll walk kind of in that rough direction. If they come across him, they'll just chase him off and carry on with their day. So out here it pays to be big. The bigger you are, the more you can throw your weight around, and there's none bigger than elephants, so they pretty much are actually the real sort of bosses of what goes on out here. So nice to be with these guys. I suspect that they are slowly kind of moving through this block, just making use of these round leaf teaks. So there's a lot of round leaf teaks in here, as well as a lot of torchwoods. Now the torchwoods, it's starting to get a little late now, but some of them could still be fruiting, and those torchwood fruits, elephants love them. So the combination of round leaf teak and torchwood fruits would make this area a really good area for elephants. And when you drive through here, you can see it's huge amount of evidence of elephants over the past few seasons. Lots of fallen over trees, lots of debris on the ground, which is always an indication that elephants enjoy a certain section. Always find them around here. They're very, very, very often moving through these blocks. It's just this kind of eastern crest that we have on Djuma. It runs all the way from kind of northern Djuma down to the south on the eastern side of the Mulawati. It's a really good area for, like I say, torchwoods and roundleaf teak, and so we get a lot of elephant moving in this section. I'm going to try and just catch up. There's a really cute little baby in amongst all of this, so we're going to try and see if we can find him. The boys have settled right down now, which is good news. Kylie, Sophie, Alex and Alexis. It's a lot of names all at once. I'm glad I remembered all of that. But you're asking how many elephant herds we have in Djuma. So that's a really difficult question to answer, because of the fact that the elephant herds in these areas change so much. We're in a part of the world that is an open system, and so what that means is that we are the Sabi Sands over here, but then there's a whole greater Kruger area with the Timbavati, Baluli, Olifants, all these kind of private areas joined. Now they all have the space for elephants to move around in. The elephants are not just confined to one area, so not just to Djuma, and that means multiple different herds move through this section all the time. So what we'll have is we'll have this herd here, but this herd might move and then cross out of Djuma today, but another herd comes in, or another herd, and you get a situation where you might have 10 herds on Djuma, but then an hour later you might only have 8, or you might have 14. So it's really difficult to know how many herds are on Djuma. We see a lot of movement of elephants through our area. It's a really nice thing. We have seriously good elephant game viewing in this greater Kruger system. It's one of the really kind of epic places to see nice, decent groupings of elephants. And it's probably I mean, it's tricky to say. Addo has got a lot of elephant too, but I think Kruger's probably the premier elephant viewing place in South Africa. And so difficult to say how many herds. The answer to it is a lot, depending on the season. If it's marula season, funnily enough, then we don't see as many herds as we would like now. Now we've had really a lot of herds coming through, and will do all the way through the dry season. But marula season, what happens is the bull elephants come in. Big bull elephants. They travel long distances to come and eat the marulas, and what they do then is they actually hassle the females. So they're constantly chasing the females around, trying to see if they can mate with them. And so the herds actually start to kind of move away a little bit. I mean, they still stay roughly where the marulas are, because they're also trying to get that food, but they get out-competed by the males quite a lot. And so you see more males in February, January, February, March than you do females. But now you start to see a lot of big herds coming through, and like I said, it will continue like that all the way through the winter, particularly because this year we had such good rain, which means there's a lot of food for them and a lot of water, and that means that the herds can just keep coming through and finding what they need and staying in the area. Now this particular herd is a big herd, and I'm trying to see if I can find one of the big females, because generally in these herds there's always an individual that you can see that will be unique, and big herds in this area, there's kind of 2 or 3 females that we see with big herds. One is Fang's herd, and she often comes from this side, so it'll be interesting to see if we can maybe scout around for her. Then there's the herd with the female that's got the tusk that grows underneath her trunk. Her herd is also quite nice. And then there's another one where there's a female that's got a very long left tusk and a shorter right tusk, and she's also got quite a nice large herd. So I'm trying to see if it's any one of those 3. I would be really, really excited if it was Fang. Fang is an elephant that a lot of you won't have seen before, but she's an elephant that's got this tusk that grows back towards her chest. It's a really long, really bowed tusk, and it comes all the way back down towards her chest. But she's absolutely beautiful, and she has, like I say, a really big grouping, and I think she became an elephant that a lot of us really kind of formed a love for, due to the fact that we had a sighting of her that was very intimate and emotional. She basically looked like she had a miscarriage, or that's what we think happened to her. And she just spent the whole afternoon right next to the vehicle being followed by this bull, and it was just the most incredible thing to witness this elephant so close. And it was difficult as well, because you could see she was clearly in distress, and she was, you know, leaking, and we could find little blood patches, and so she just really was not a happy elephant. But she kept coming to the car and just sitting right near the car. It was a pretty crazy experience to be a part of, and this bull just kind of walking around with her, and they literally were just surrounding the vehicle. And so that's where we kind of formed this, I don't know if you'd call it a bond, but we formed this appreciation for her, and one where we really wanted to see her as much as possible. Unfortunately, she doesn't typically stick around here much, so we see her, she comes through for a day or 2 and then out again, and sometimes it can be months until we see her again, unfortunately. But anyway, hopefully this is her herd. We'll try and see if we can find. There's so many of them. They're stretching in all directions around us. So while I try and figure out which herd we actually have, I'm going to send you, I think, is it back to David, Alex? Yes, I always get confused between David and Dylan, but back to David with the Evoker male.
Welcome back to this incredible sighting. This light is just perfect now as the sun rises. Gets even better. You really see that gold in his mane. That contrast of that dark hair at the bottom of his mane. He does have a lovely dark mane. All in the line have a slightly different haircut, you could say, slightly different style. He's got a really cool mane. I love the different colors. It's now time that everyone can send in their questions. Remember to use the hashtag WildEarth. We'd love to hear from you. Look at that face. All those scars. How many fights has he been in? Territorial disputes, fights with other males. He's been through the wars. How many injuries has he sustained in buffalo hunts and pursuits through the bush? He's got some stories to tell, this boy. Joy, you've asked, does it seem that he's eaten recently? I haven't really been able to see his stomach too well, but as soon as he stands up, we'll have a look and see how he's looking, if he's looking fat or if he's looking hungry. Well, the sun is just beautiful. Getting higher in the sky over here, but back over to the west. It's only just rising in Tswalu Kalahari. Let's send you over to Dylan and have a look.
The sun hasn't quite reached the naked horizon, but I think within the next 15-20 minutes
Just had a little roll over here so we can see a little bit of his tummy. He doesn't look too hungry, but also not terribly full. He hasn't just eaten a buffalo, if that's what you mean, Joy. And he's doing good. He's looking okay. I do see when he moves that he still has a lot of pain in that front right leg. Hopefully that heals up pretty soon. Look at the bottom of those feet. Just love looking at the bottom of cats' feet. Those pads are so pronounced. We're forever looking at the tracks on the ground as we try and follow and find these lion, but it's nice to see what leaves the track, to really study the bottom of that pad. Although they're tough, they're not as hard as one might think. Lion often display discomfort on stony or thorny ground. They often like to stick to sandier sections. I believe everyone's relieved that he's not looking too skinny. He'll be just fine. I wonder what his last meal was, and what it took to get that meal. No drive-through takeaways out here in the bush. Every meal requires a lot of effort. JC, you've asked where's the rest of his pride, and I'm not sure. Sure they're around. I haven't heard about the evokers recently. Had the Nkuhumas here quite a bit. About a week ago we had some tracks coming through that we thought were the evokers. So they are around. I'm not sure. I don't really know the evoker pride dynamic at all. I don't spend a lot of time in this area, but I'm not sure what the evoker pride consists of. But JC, as you may know, male lions, especially in a coalition, will often be on their own. The prides will maintain their the nucleus or the center of the territory, with the males often found on the perimeters as they constantly patrol to form a bit of a buffer zone that would be able to intercept any other incoming lions, males or females, other prides that might pose a threat to the territory. So to find them on their own like this is very common. And of course they do keep in contact with their fellow brothers or the pride females. And that's the roaring that we've been hearing. Well, it sounds like audio should be good on Tswalu's side, so let's send you back over to Dylan and see what he's got to say.
Apologies there, we just had a small gremlin glitch on the sound, but we're back again. The meerkat slan's up yet, but I think in the next 15 minutes or so, maybe even less, they're going to be up. There's hardly a breath of wind out here this morning. The temperature is absolutely gorgeous, so it's not particularly cold, although I'm still wrapped up. So let's just give it a little bit of time, but while we're waiting for them to come out, I've got another question for the morning. So while Jandre and I were walking up from the vehicle, we picked up these feathers. They are absolutely beautiful. I'll give you one hint. I want to know who they come from. And the hint that I'll give you is I'll tell you what they're not. Okay, they are not vulture feathers. Okay, so if anyone's got any ideas, guesses, suggestions, feel free to let me know, and I'll tell you who's closest or who got it right. But you can see the size of these, you know, compared to my hand. I mean, these are huge. That's about 40 centimeters in length. So Wiles just asked, are they ostrich feathers? No, they're not ostrich feathers. But I mean, look at those. Those are absolutely beautiful. Amber, that is very, very astute of you. It is a bird, and it is a big bird. We want to know which bird. Wow, it's like the ultimate pen. Okay, it's not a martial eagle, but yeah, that's not a bad guess, but it's not a martial eagle. We can do like ding, 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 ding. It's like you can. Sorry, Chandra, I'm just having a chuckle here. So while we're enjoying this, please head over to Tristan and his elephants.
Well, enjoy those feathers. We are enjoying a temper tantrum Ellie that is having a meltdown at us in amongst his round leaf teak. All of a sudden, he's just had a little frothy and is now taking it out on every bit of vegetation that he can find. The rest of the herd is completely non-fussed by him. It's just him that has decided that he wants to have a little temper tantrum, and he trumpeted at us, and then he was throwing bushes and just doing, you know, elephant things. Here we go. Starts again. Okay, boy, we got the point. You see, there goes a branch. Proper little temper tantrum that is being thrown right now. Not impressed with us at all and our presence in amongst the herd. It's always funny to watch these young males, because all of this is literally, as I was saying, is a little bit of testosterone mixed in with the fact that they want to really impress and impose themselves, but are not that confident in what they're doing. And so they make a big show, and then when you don't move, then they get a little bit like, okay, but now what? I'm supposed to chase you away. And when mom does this, everybody scatters, but yet you're not scattering. So as long as the females don't respond to his antics and give us a hard time, then it's absolutely fine to watch this and to be a part of it. It's just him being a little bit full of nonsense is all. Why is that female off on a hurry down the slope? I always love watching Ellies go down a slope. They end up in a situation where they almost look like they're overbalancing, and they kind of get a speed wobble, and then they have to sort of slowly brake themselves again in order to find. Look at this one. I can see you. Do you think I can't see you behind that tree? Is that necessary? Was that really necessary? Now you've just destroyed a whole tree. For no reason. Yes, I can see you big and strong. Okay, at least you're eating it. That's a good thing. Shasha, these Ellies are full of the beans. There's just one Ellie in particular. The rest of the herd is peacefully feeding, has not paid us any attention, is not worried. But there's just this one that is full of nonsense. And it's the same one that was part of the fighting boys earlier. So it clearly got too much sugar for breakfast and is now acting out, or it didn't sleep well and is now in a grumpy mood this morning. It's cute grumpy though. Were he 50 years old and doing this kind of stuff, it wouldn't be so cute anymore. But at this age, it's fine. You don't have to worry so much. Newsflash, you say, R.I.P. tree. Yes, I'm afraid that bush willow has succumbed to an elephant bulldozer. See, now he's going to go and take out his anger on one of the younger siblings of the herd. Safari Kitty, he does need a timeout, but it's fine. I don't have to worry about that because he'll cause enough nonsense that eventually one of the females will come and they will put him in a timeout and he'll listen to that. If I try to put him in a timeout, he's going to just be full of nonsense. So he's going to have to cause some trouble and then the moms get involved and that's the end of that. But look at him going backwards. What are you doing, silly boy? Is it all too much for you this morning? And now we're going to go down on the ground. It's a pity there's so many leaves in the way. Yes, this elephant is definitely full of these. You can hear the tusks together. The other elephant's shame is just trying to eat, and then this one is just bullying him. Let's try to go forward a little bit, just see if we can get around this tree slightly. Shame. Like I said, the other one's just trying to eat its round leaf tea, just trying to enjoy breakfast, and unfortunately is having to deal with its delinquent cousin, who keeps interrupting him. But why must we break trees? Now you can see immediately with an elephant, what's interesting with this is not so much his antics, because obviously that is interesting, and him being full of nonsense, but his postures. What I want you to look at is this is a really good lesson for us in terms of postures of elephants that you would need to be aware of if you were around elephants while this is playing and while this is a young male just being full of nonsense. His postures and his display and his behavior is that of an individual, if you were to see it in an adult female or an adult male, of very clear warning signs of you are too close, get away from that elephant. In this particular case, it's being displayed to the other elephant that's here, no longer us. But when you see an elephant bashing trees, when you see an elephant's tail that is dead straight out the back, and when you see their ears out like that and they sort of nodding their head, those are all big indicators that this animal is being serious about being irritable. And if it's directed at you, then you know you need to be careful. I'm going to just come around so hopefully we can see that behavior properly, because of course now that I want to talk about it, he disappears into a dense thicket. Here we go, they might come back onto our side now. Just listen to the poor trees getting annihilated during this. So like I was saying, I mean, if you see any of those behaviors, if you have those ears out like you see now, where he's kind of posturing, lifting that head, that's already an indication that he's alert and has taken notice of you. If they start to turn lateral, like he is now, with the head raised, then often they'll swing towards you. Then they know that you're there and they're starting to say, hey, I'm not happy with you. Tail dead straight out the back, as you can see with him kind of moving off. And then, like I say, crashing of trees, breaking of trees, that's all indications that it's an upset animal and that you need to be very careful when they're adults. In this case, though, like I say, this is just a young teenager that's being full of nonsense. There you can hear him, he's far already, trumpeting at everybody. Anyway, we'll try and catch up with him and the rest of the herd and see what they get up to. It sounds like there's quite a lot of them still further on, so we'll go and find them. In the meantime, though, from one creature full of antics and beans this morning, let's send you across to Dylan, who, well, not him who's full of antics and beans, but the animal that he's with as well.
So these horse and meerkats have just got out of bed now. Literally about 3-4 minutes ago. They started popping out, starting to sun themselves. So it's going to be so interesting following these, or keeping tabs on these guys over the next 3 weeks. Because then that's kind of the time frame that we're going to have for the little pups to come out. And it'll be very, very unusual for them to shift burrows during this time. Of course, the challenge, you know, you can get these parasite loads that build up at any particular burrow system if it's in residence for an extended period of time. And then the other side of it is that, you know, any predators in the area start becoming tuned into, okay, yeah, there is a colony of meerkats living here, you know, and that's when I think you start getting these stalk and attack incidents that could pick up. That will be from caracal, African wildcat, jackals, and even birds of prey. You can still see they're quite sleepy. Got their heads down. Just waking up to the new day. Have we got any takers on the... Alana, I'm sure they did make their beds nicely. They are fairly conscientious and astute housekeepers, if you see the way they maintain their burrows. So I'm sure they did make their beds nicely. Have we got any takers yet on what bird we think these feathers came from, now that we've determined it was in fact a bird? We have a winner, Vicky, well done. These are exactly corribusted feathers. These are definitely corribusted feathers, and the reason we know that there were actually corribusted tracks and droppings in that area as well where we found these. So very, very well done. Your vulture feathers tend not to have as much white on them. Well, certainly the vultures that we get here, and the feathers tend to be a bit darker than this. But we also just going on the actual patterns, you know, this brown and white mottled patterning on this. So that's very, very well done. So we're going to spend some more time over here, and in the meantime head over to David and see what they've got on that end.
Welcome back. It's still just as mind-blowing as it's been the last hour sitting with this boy, listening to him roar, watching his body heavier as he listens out into the bush, perhaps for a reply. As we were sitting here with him, a warthog came running down the road and got about 30 yards behind him, and all of a sudden stopped dead in his tracks. You could see utter terror in this warthog's eyes as he realized it was lying in front of him. The lion heard him, turned around, looked at him, and Pumbaa was gone in a flash, a cloud of dust. He did a U-turn and made his escape. These Juma warthogs surely are playing with fire. They seem to like getting close to these lions. But this warthog lived to tell another day. He's probably back at the burrow now with his mates, busy telling them about his close call with the lion. Livy, you're 11 years old. You've asked, do female lions ever roar? And they most certainly do. They've got a little bit of a different roar. Slightly less, I suppose, what the word would I use? Slightly less gruff. But they do roar, very powerful roars, just like their males. And they roar quite often to communicate. They roar to declare territory. They roar to communicate with the males that protect their pride. And females are also very territorial, so if a female pride hears females from another pride in their area, then they'll often intercept to see what's happening and perhaps fight them off. I can't imagine what the African bush would be like without the lion roar that carries through on the early morning air. Just one of the sounds that makes Africa, Africa. But there are other animals out here that are also very special in their calls and very unique to Africa. One of which is a lot smaller than this guy. Let's go over to Dylan and see who's chatting.
So they're starting to look a little bit more perky now. There's still one little one with its head down, but the rest are kind of like looking around. They're warming up very quickly now. There's a nice breeze picking up. Actually, you can actually, that'll drop the ambient temperature marginally, but this is perfect weather for them to forage in. That cold snap that we had the past couple of days seems to have moved out completely now, which is good. And interestingly, absolutely no sign of a mirage this morning. Because that cold front's moved off, there's not that much of a temperature gradient. So we didn't see anything like that this morning. It's going to be so interesting to see how many youngsters there actually are when they pop out. Wow, that's a nice question there, or an interesting thing is like some of you may be wondering or are wondering, would a Corrie bustard ever attack a meerkat? I would imagine it would be extremely unlikely. Corrie bustards are omnivores. So these armored ground crickets that we've been having a look at over the past couple of days, they'll eat things like that. They'll eat little lizards, geckos, seeds, grass seeds, fruit of trees. The Afrikaans name is quite interesting. The Afrikaans name is a gompo. They've cut over to Tristan with the elephants having a fight.
Well, they've disappeared now behind the thickets, I'm afraid. Elephants have been uncooperative for us this morning. Every time we're off air, they give us beautiful views. Every time we go live, they tend to move off. So I don't know what their issue is this morning, but we've at least had a nice sighting, Alex and I. We've thoroughly enjoyed being with our elephants. They've been super interesting to watch around this mound. It's not your fault, Emma. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Wildlife is wildlife. They move and they have their own minds, and so sometimes behavior just changes on a dime, and it is what it is. You guys do a good job to keep everybody kind of seeing as much as they can, so don't stress about it. But it's interesting to watch them feed off this mound. It's been quite a few different behaviors that have taken place on here, which has been interesting to watch. So the first thing is obviously they're eating around a mound, which is a very common thing to see a lot of the herbivores doing. As we've discussed, and I'm sure has been said before, is that termite mounds are a hugely important part of the nutrition value within an ecosystem, because of the way a termite mound is constructed using the feces and the saliva and the particles of soil. It creates a very fertilized environment. See, that elephant's got a funny tail. It's a fertilized environment for various animals or grasses to grow and animals to then feed off it. But we were watching these ellies on this mound. We saw basically feeding off a termite mound, which is one behavioral aspect. The second was we watched them move branches and trees that had fallen over there to access grasses, which is always interesting to watch. Ellies are the only ones that, well, rhinos to a degree do it as well, but they lift and move branches and they actually access grasses that others can't. And we also saw them digging on there, which is really interesting. Generally you don't see them digging on mounds, but because this probably had a tree that was on it at some point, there was some roots there, and they were actually exposing those roots and being able to eat off it. It was really cool to see all of that behavior just on one mound next to the road. Very cool. Right, these guys are moving off. I think where they're heading is down to the Mulawati to go and drink at those big holes that they've dug. So I want to follow them just because I always love watching them dig holes in the Mulawati and drink there. I think it's so interesting watching that and how that dictates water values for a lot of other animals. Oh, there's a lot of elephants here. Sorry, Alex, we're going to go around and catch them on the other side. We're going to try and for once get ahead of them rather than behind them at this stage, except that there's ellies everywhere, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to. Hello, young man. Oh, you are a hooligan from earlier. Oh, shame. I think it is exactly who it is. It looks like him. Franco is 12 years old. It really depends on a lot of things as to how far they will cover in a single day. Elephants are animals that obviously need to eat a lot and drink a lot. And so it depends on how much food there is at the time of the year that they're walking around. Depends on how much water is available. That will always tell you how far they go. But these elephants probably will cover, given that we have so much food and water at the moment, I don't think they'll cover more than 20 kilometers a day, or 10, even 10 kilometers would be a lot for these elephants. End of winter, when food is not as easy to find and water is not as easy to find, you might find them doing upwards of 20, 30 kilometers, even more, to find food. In parts of Botswana, in the central parts where it's very much a kind of desert environment and very dry, there you'll see elephants doing upwards of 50 kilometers a day. So what is that in miles? Like 35 miles a day, just to try and get water, and that's pretty much what drives them for the most part. But here they're very lucky. A lot of food, a lot of water, don't have to travel far at all. Okay, let's go around, Alex, and we'll get the rest of them. They're all over the road on either side here, so... Alright, our elephants have been awake for a while and have been pretty busy and full of beans. It sounds like Dylan's meerkats, though, are slowly starting to wake up in the cold of Tswalu Kalahari, and let's see what they're going to get up to.
So these little guys are warming up super fast now. Tristan and the guys in the Lowveld had that amazing lion sighting. So we were just busy discussing, would a corribus take a meerkat, and the chance is extremely small. And they're omnivores, but the meerkats are really outside of their prey range. And probably a more interesting one would be something like a secretary bird. And Jean-André and I were just chatting about it. It's like, well, yeah, secretary birds are these large raptors. They're not omnivores. They are 100% raptors, predatory. And but they specialize on things like snakes. I mean, that's what secretary birds are known for. Not just snakes. They go for a lot of agamas, these ground-dwelling lizards. So again, although that could pose a threat to a meerkat, very, very, very unlikely. I wouldn't imagine that to be the case. It would, in terms of birds of prey, it would be your raptors like martial eagles, pale chanting goshawks, where Tristan and Dave and the chaps are working down there. You also get goshawks. They dark chanting goshawks. Ours are called pale chanting, and hopefully we'll actually get to see one over the next couple of days. And that's one reason why these little guys keep on looking up every now and again. They just want to make sure, there isn't any aerial threat to them. I love the way they use their tails as a brace when they're standing up like it. So they're effectively little tripods. Yep, sometimes that tripod doesn't work so well. So we're trying to guess which way they're going to go foraging. Tessa's just asked, how do they stand on their hind legs and how do they balance? Standing on their hind legs is actually fairly straightforward. I mean, their legs are muscular, their legs are quite strong, so that's quite easy. But in terms of standing like that for an extended period of time, it's actually then they put their tail down and they put their tail in the sand, and that actually helps to balance more easily when they're standing up like it. I think if they didn't have those lovely long tails that help them stand like that, I think they'd probably not stand up for so. Yes, I'm so excited to see how many little ones there are. Going to need all in good time. But if she has, there's 6 here now, if she has 3, 4, 5 pups, suddenly you can end up with a group of 10 plus meerkats, And obviously as those little ones are growing, there's a lot of feeding to be done, a lot of learning curves to go through, great risk of predation, because, those little ones don't move as fast as the adults. So Zero, the reason or how we know that the meerkats have had pups is we've got a team of people on the ground, and they are just absolutely brilliant with these meerkats, and they follow these groups around every morning and every afternoon to make sure that we know which burrow they go into. So we keep them nice and relaxed around people, so they can see, oh, okay, one's, you know, the matriarch or the adult female is pregnant, and then they can actually see when she's given birth. And that's pretty much in a nutshell how we do it. So it's really just knowing the animals very, very, very well, which groups are where, which burrows they're using, what areas that they're foraging in, who's the dominant female, who's the dominant male. We're just gonna carry on sitting it out here and see what they get up to. It sounds like David's lions are up and going, so I think head over there and see what they've got.
Well, he's just lifted his head. There's a lovely yawn coming, flashing those huge canines. Heard from a different vehicle on the other side of the property that there was some other lion audio, some of the lions roaring. I couldn't hear them from here, but he certainly could. He was looking intently in that direction. It always fascinates me how they can communicate so far. And what's even more incredible, oh, look at those beautiful teeth. What's even more incredible is that they can tell the difference between who's roaring. Lovely, he gets up. Nice little stretch. See that? Front right leg is still quite sore. Oh, you sore, boy. Must have pulled a muscle in a hunt. Looks a bit swollen there at the bottom. Well, let's just start off and go around so we can see him. I know it's sad to see a lion like that limping, but it's part of the life out here. They go through some serious physical exertion when they hunt things. You know, if you pull down a buffalo, that's power. You pull down an animal 3 times plus his weight. No wonder they get hurt on occasion. But with some rest, he will recover, hopefully. He does look now like he could have a meal. Hopefully that comes along soon. We're going to stick with him, give him some space, let him do what he does and see where he goes. But while we do that, let's send you over to Tristan with some baby Ellies on the move.
We do have 2 little Ellies. They're super, super cute. They've been suckling and pushing one another and just having the best time as little babies. But there's something about a baby elephant that is incredibly sweet when it's moving around on the road. I like how they kind of almost fall over themselves. Their feet seem to be too big and their heads too heavy, and generally just cuteness overload when they're around. Of course, there's the delinquent teenagers still busy with their nonsense all throughout the herd at the moment. They are pushing and shoving each other. You can actually hear their feet on the ground. Very cool.
nice just to hear them. Very, very cool. Now, sitting here with these guys has been really, really nice from a point of view that I've actually seen the African hawk eagles behind me. Their nest is behind me, and they're actually building their nest at the moment, which is really interesting. It's quite early in the year that they've started, but really cool to see. It means that they're going to use this nest again to breed, which is going to be very cool. I'm always excited when the African hawk eagles nest here. It's a nice eagle to be able to see having a nest. Unfortunately, its view is not great, so you can't see the chick very easily, but at least you can see the adults going back and forth with kills, which is pretty cool. So it's a nice thing. They, like I said, generally only breed in the late winter, so I'm surprised that they're already building a nest or doing the nesting material as it is. But I've got a report now that it sounds like the Talamati Pride is actually not very far from where I am right now, so we're going to go and just double check if we can catch up with them at some point. Still got lots of ellies on both sides of the road. It's interesting that they're in. It's crazy. We've had the Inkumas, Talamatis and Torchwoods in the space of a few days, which has been really nice. Obviously the Torchwoods weren't on Djuma itself, they were on Chitwa, but it's close enough. The Inkumas were on Chitwa the other day as well, so very, very cool. Alright, let me try and see if I can go and catch up with these Talamatis. While I do that though, I'm going to send you back across to David with the Evoker, who's still limping along. We're just following him here at a distance, seeing which way he goes. Just over the dam wall now. Apparently he had a broken foot last year, or an injured foot, so maybe that is still the reason for his limping, but he seems to be doing a little bit better now that he's gotten some movement going. It's obviously a very cold morning, so maybe he was just extra stiff when he got up. But if he's had this injury since last year and he's still managing, then I'm sure he'll be okay, he'll recover. Luckily, animals are very resilient and also very sensitive to the pain that they go through, so that pain protects them, it takes pressure off that foot. But don't be fooled. When a hunt goes on, he will still go full speed. It's as if that foot doesn't hurt at all when he needs to catch something. Oh, he's marking. Interesting. He's marking on that bush there. We'll try and get ahead a little bit so he can see. Megan, you've said animals can be very adaptive when they need to be. I agree, it's part of it's part of their resilience and their survival. Yeah, he's doing some serious marking this morning. Lioness, you've said he looks amazing compared to last year. Well, that's great news. I didn't see him last year. I'm glad to hear he's on his way to recovery. One of the saddest things you can see in the bush is a male lion that's injured start going downhill and never recovering. But I do not think that'll be the fate of this boy. I think he's still got many good years ahead of him. Sure he will be back in top shape in no time. But in order for us to be able to carry on watching him and monitoring him as he makes his road to recovery, we do need help as always, so please follow that link on the bottom of the page. Show your support so that we can carry on doing what we do, and that's bring you the beauty of the African bush. Oh, he gave a little sneeze there. Hopefully he's been washing his hands. Oh, looks like he's rather using the bush to clean his nose. But while we carry on with this boy down the road, see which way he goes, let's send you back over to the meerkats.
Like that. So I've just moved a little bit further away. Jandre and I are kind of trying to determine or trying to figure out, taking bets as to see which direction they're going to go foraging today. So they won't necessarily forage in the same area every time. I mean, their territories can be 10, 12, even larger hectares in extent. So that's, let's say 20 acres, even a little bit larger than 20 acres occasionally. And within that, obviously the habitat is not perfectly and the same, but it's not homogeneous, and food is not evenly distributed. So these little guys can go foraging in any direction. And I think the fact that they went out down towards where the vehicle was parked yesterday, so from where you or where we're viewing them, out to the right hand side is the direction that they went yesterday. And so it'll be interesting to see where they move off this morning. I've just seen while I'm walking out, and I will show you later, I'm not going to give it away, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I have something that I'm insanely excited about, and it's got to do with a little stone flake that we saw, that I spoke about yesterday, and I've actually got goosebumps as I'm standing up. This is really exciting. But we'll show that to you a little bit later when the meerkats have moved off. Then we'll come back to that. So yeah, don't go anywhere. Eh? Stay glued to that screen. I love the suspense of this. And I'm sure the meerkats are waiting in anticipation from what I'm going to show them, but I'm going to suspect that they probably know what I'm going to be looking at. Maybe not necessarily what it is, but they know exactly that it's in their territory, and they've probably seen it so many times before. So we're going to head back to the low veld while these little guys start heading out, and but we'll be back shortly.
Okay, so we have spent the last sort of hour trying to find these lions. So we left Rowan following tracks of that herd of buffalo. Looks like it tracks of the buffalo cross out of Angola and beyond Angola at least. They cross off our eastern boundary, and it looks like the lions were hunting them last night. They got tracks going left, right, up, down, backwards, forwards, U-turns, all sorts of weird things. And there were some close calls. We thought we heard the lions eating, but it was just impalas fighting. It was their horns bashing together. So we never had any luck there. But the good news is wherever I saw Roan's tracks, there were no lion tracks. So I think he's still alive. Not 100% sure. What we're doing now is we're having a look down in the river. This is where we saw the pride last night. Well, I mean Roan. And we just wanted to have a look if that female is here with her 2 cubs. You know, also see if we can find some tracks of them leading anywhere. But it does not appear so. If you remember, this is exactly where they're lying, up on the bank here. And just inside there where Odie is recording now, I think is where she was, this female with the 2 young cubs. But as you can see, nothing at the moment. And it's very nice weather. While I was out trying to track, it got quite hot. It's very nice in the sun actually. It's a perfect day. But, you know, this is a good sign. Look, I mean, they were hunting, they were looking, they were trying. I think they were unsuccessful. That's why we didn't find anything. We haven't seen any vultures, hyenas. We haven't, excuse me, heard any chewing, anything like that. So I would suggest they were unsuccessful. So they may have just lain down to go and, you know, relax, because you're hunting the whole night. Hunting is very intense. It uses a lot of energy. So then they generally go and they lie down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to loop up onto the road on that side, just to make sure there's no tracks of these lions coming out anywhere there. And also then just carry on down, see what else we can find. Maybe some elephants, giraffes, zebras, hoping for a leopard, you know, whatever it may be. We will have a look, and I'll keep you updated if we ever find Rowan, and hopefully he's alive still. But yeah, what we're going to do now is send you back across to David, who's got another lion.
Well, just come and lay down in the shade of a quarry. Hasn't moved too far. But the good news is that foot of his is looking better and better as he got moving. Talking about animal resilience, you can imagine how tough they must be to be able to go through an injury like this and recover, still maintain condition, still hunt. Like I said before, I've seen lion actually on Djuma a couple years back, also had a very bad limp and looking very uncomfortable whilst walking, and then I heard a buffalo approached, and these males, and I watched that live to see how he'd do, and he didn't even show the slightest limp. As soon as that hunt was going, he was full speed without any. When it counts, when they need it, they'll be able to run just fine in most cases. And then of course, when they're just moving normally like this, they will try and reduce weight on that foot as much as possible to recover, because they know they need to heal. They don't get medication and anti-inflammatories. They just know what they need. Well, the good news is that we are not the only lions on Djuma today. Sounds like Tristan has managed to catch up with some others. Let's go over to him and see what he has to say.
Indeed, we have managed to catch up with the Talamatis. As you can see, they are just finishing off, excuse me, the remains of an impala that they have managed to just kill in the early hours of this morning. So maybe that's why the Avoca has a bit of a full belly, but just listen to the noises. Now, unlike the Nkuhumas from the other day with their warthogs, which was a frenzied chaos, which this would have been a earlier, this is now the after effects of it. There's no meat, so there's a little bit of growling here and there, but it's not as bad. But mostly what you're hearing is the cubs talking to their moms. They're going to their mothers, they're getting groomed now, and it's a case of everybody's just kind of making themselves comfortable and finding a spot to get rid of all the blood that's on them. But really nice to see the Talamatis on Djuma. Like I said, it's been an absolute lion fest the last couple of days between, Nkuhuma Pride with that warthog kill and the Evoca male and Torchwoods last night, and now the Talamatis as well. Now those are basically sub-adult or cubs that are fighting with one another. Those two are going to fight again now. The two that are growling. Excuse me, sorry, my sneeze has probably interrupted your delightful lion growls, but necessary evil with the dust at the moment. Thank you, Emma, for the Isn't that just so cool to hear? Alana, most definitely it is the rumble in the jungle. Just watch that one's tail. It's always an indicator of when they're getting upset. It's when their tail starts to flick, and I wouldn't be surprised they lash out at each other like what we heard just now. That little escalation in growls and sort of noise is due to them fighting with one another, because the meat is now obviously running out, and yet they're trying to fight over the last leg or the last little bit of the skull or whatever it may be that they've got, the two of them. And that's why there's so much sort of interaction between those two. So cool to see. Puma, so you're asking where these guys are in relation to Dark Mane. So these guys are basically quite tricky to explain. They're between the Firebreak, Central, Hyena Road, and Gowrie Cutline. It's kind of closer to the Firebreak though. So from Dark Mane, where David initially found him, is directly to the northeast, less than a kilometer from where he was. So whether or not he was here, I don't know, but what surprises me about this is that he, from the distance that David is from where I am, should have heard these lines and should have theoretically come in here if he had heard a kill and come in and taken over. So it surprises me that he didn't make his way here, and instead it sounds like he's moving away from us rather than towards us, which is interesting because you can hear there's a lot of noise going on, and for a lion they will hear this quite far. And generally when a male lion hears other lions feeding, he quickly makes his way to see if he can share some of it and steal some of it. So I'm surprised that he isn't with them. He also crossed in a different part from where these guys did, so it's going to be interesting to see, whether or not he joins with them by this afternoon, or if he's going to just continue moving away from them.
growls and rumbles that are taking place. So cool to listen to. I mean, obviously it's sad that there's an impala that's been killed, but we've been treated to the sound of lions so much this week. It's been absolutely amazing, from the roars of the Avoca male to the fighting of the Nkuhuma pride, and now again the feeding rumbles of the Talamatis. Alright, well, we're going to sit with these guys. We're going to enjoy the sounds that they're making. Hopefully we'll get some better views of them as they start to get up and move a little bit. And while we do that, let's send you across to other animals that also make an incredible array of sounds with Dylan at Tswalu Kalahari.
So what's happened here now, we've got the meerkat that seems to be doing sentry duty in front of us. And across to the right, I'm just going to tell you, we don't have to go there, but just so you know, okay, Jean-Andre is going to do this great stuff. So this is the little guy that we actually thought was going to be on sentry duty today, because when the group moved off, that was the one that was actually standing at the burrow. But then this younger one actually stayed behind with him. And then we were kind of like, okay, well, geez, what's going to happen here? What, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? So it turns out that it seems to be the younger one that's actually going to be doing sentry duty today. But we're only going to know that for sure once one of them leaves. So this is very, very interesting, sure. And I suppose at some point, the youngsters have got to take on that responsibility and, all right, you're on sentry duty, just do it. And in terms of that learning process of how to go about watching out for danger, I mean, it's just grown up within this colony that's just so alert all the time. So, I mean, it's got those skills. So it's not that it can't do it. Yeah, no, it's a steep learning curve, but it gets done. Cam, unless something is actually around the burrow, the meerkat that stays behind, the babysitter, actually doesn't eat during the day. It's only they'll do a bit of foraging when the rest of the group gets back with whatever's close by. But that's also why it's very important that you'll see it's never the same meerkat. It's unlikely to ever be the same meerkat on babysitting duty on consecutive days. They'll keep alternating through the group. And remember, because the female will be producing milk for the next couple of weeks for the youngsters underground, she needs to be out foraging to be able to get enough sustenance for herself to be able to produce milk. So there's this wonderful rotation that they're using here in order to make sure that the group is still functioning as an effective unit while there's youngsters. While we debating and discussing the roles of babysitters and who gets to do it and how they learn to do it, we can head back to Tristan and the lions.
Do indeed. We've got some young lions obviously learning how to get their fair share, which is what the growling's about. We've also got adults. Now, there's one adult here that you'll notice, unfortunately, he's got an injury on her. It's nothing to worry about. It's an injury she sustained killing a kudu. So she's got a laceration on the front right of her leg, which looks really bad, and it looks like a big chunk isn't out of there. Listen to this. Tug of war over the leg now. Now, if you are a bit sensitive to some of these sounds of animals, of bones being crushed down, unfortunately, now is probably the time just to turn the volume down. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive to that, but for others that want to hear, there's going to be those sounds as she crunches the leg. But like I say, she's got a bit of a wound on the inside of her right leg. It's nothing to worry about. It's a flesh wound. It, like I say, was sustained when they were killing a kudu. It was just when I arrived, so about 2 weeks ago now. And it's like I say, it's just basically ripped the inside of her leg, and it's not deep. It's not in any way affecting her walking. She's walking absolutely fine. So it's just a flesh wound that will just take a while to heal over. It looks worse than it really is. Lions are, as Dave was saying, super resilient animals. These things can go through some serious hardships and injuries and still be fine. And so she'll be absolutely all right. I don't envisage there being too many problems for her going forward. I think she'll just take a bit of time. She's going to have to just keep it clean and obviously groom it a lot, and then she'll be all right. But that is the hardships of lion duties, is hunting does bring injuries. What's interesting, it sounds like these guys were trying to hunt buffalo last night, and we're trailing those buffalo. So it seems as though they were looking for a meal, and obviously then got themselves an impala eventually, which is really not a big meal for a pride this size. You can see there's a fair number of lions here. I'm not actually sure what the total number is nowadays. I must find out, because with these lion prides it seems to bounce around all over the place, but I'll try and ask the guys that see them more regularly how many they're actually seeing. Yes, it is a snack for them. An impala really doesn't go very far amongst this many lions. It literally is just a small snack, and will be something that they'll kind of eat and then still be fairly hungry. If you look at the one that stood up now, you can see her tummy is almost empty. She's got really very little in that stomach. So it's not like they are full and fat and well fed after this. They are in a situation where they could still definitely eat, and that's why a pride of this size is going to be actively looking for buffalo and large animals like zebras and wildebeest. And what they seem to be the most successful with is wildebeest. You often hear of these guys on wildebeest kills. It's also because up in Buffelshoek, where they spend 90% of their time, there is a lot of zebra and wildebeest in those open clearings up there, so they've just learned how to hunt those. But as the pride gets bigger and as these youngsters start to grow and get larger, so they're going to have to really start focusing on things like buffalo and giraffe. It's not going to be very easy for them to sustain on just impalas. They're going to need to start thinking outside the box a little bit in order to feed this many mouths. Now, I'm hoping at some point the one individual, I know it's difficult to see a lot of these lions because of the grass is so long, but what I'm hoping is that at some point we see the one that's got the little stubby tail. There's one that's got a tip of his tail missing. He's very cute. I quite like him. So I'm hoping he'll stand up and walk around just now. Isn't it cool though, just to hear these low grumbles? Here every now and then there's a bit of a crunch on the bones. Now that's just obviously legs and things that are just being broken down. An impala leg is thin enough for a lioness of that size to actually eat the whole thing. We're going to sit here and just continue to listen. Visuals are quite difficult, but at least the audio is really good. And so while we do that, let's send you across to David. He's with Dark Mane, and it sounds like his nose is in the air. Well, perhaps he's sniffing out for the pride nearby. That's great news that Tristan's managed to locate Talamatis and their aperitif of an impala. Juma has given us another gift once again. Some epic lion sightings this morning. Here he is. Let's watch him. Blowing straight into his face. He is scenting the air. You can hear the wind there. Lovely little breeze just sprung up, so he's moving into the wind, as cats often do. Allows them to smell what's ahead and use it to their advantage if they come across an opportunity to hunt. You reckon he smells what's left of that impala with its Talamatis? Perhaps. Well, let's just move and get a better look at him. Neva, perhaps he does smell that impala or what's left, but not much left at all. It'd be like smelling the crumbs in the box of an empty Big Mac. Nothing left. Moondust, you've asked what are the chances of this lion reuniting with his brothers, reforming the coalition? Moondust, I don't know the Avoca males personally. I haven't spent much time here, but from what I can see, he's still very much involved. He is marking, he's still roaring. I'm pretty sure he's still part of the coalition, in which case he will at some stage reunite. He is a big lion. Seeing it on camera, seeing him from the vehicle is epic. You can see his size, but being so close to him in my first person perspective, I can really say he is massive. Seeing him up close like this, he's got such massive paws and his head is huge. A real powerhouse. These really big cats, they can weigh upwards of 250 kilograms. That's around 400 pounds of lion. But there's also power being displayed with Tristan. Send you back over and listen to the might of the Talamatis.
quieter now. It's not as heavy and intense with the growling. I think so little left now. Everyone's really screaming and big. It seems it is now over, and now after fighting with one another, you can see there's one or two that are still eating, but really very, very, very little in the way of food left. And like I said, it's starting to get a lot calmer now, which is good news. And everyone's starting to find their little spot to settle. I'm hoping they're going to kind of spend the day here, and that we'll have them again tonight. Buffelshoek Dam is not too far from here, so maybe they go for their water there. It'd be interesting to see actually which way they go. I suspect that's the way that they'll head, rather than heading towards Vuyatela Dam or Gari Dam. I don't think they want to head that way. I'm pretty sure they're going to go Buffelshoek side, but wouldn't it be nice to have the entire pride on Buffelshoek Dam wall or somewhere there where we get a really good view of all of them? Because like I said, it's difficult to make out how many are actually in this grouping at the moment, or how many are here currently. It's literally just odd. Every now and then you just see another head pop up out of nowhere in the long grass, and if you were to drive here and they weren't eating, or walk here and they weren't eating, you would never see them. You would end up going right past them, unless you were right next to where they are. And that's how they were actually found, is that the guys heard them making a noise over the kill and managed to pick them up that way. But nice to spend some time with them again. You can see a few little cuts and scrapes on the nose. Those are all typical of lions that are slightly older, especially big prides like this. Often their noses look a little bit scratched up, and that's over food that they're fighting mostly. So when they catch something, then they fight over it and lash out at each other and claw each other's faces a little bit. So often you'll see in bigger prides more cuts and scrapes than in smaller prides. It's a normal thing to see. And see, she's just grooming that area where she's got that wound at the moment, which is good. Elvis, you say you like this pride, but the Nkuhumas have your heart. Well, I mean, the thing is that we've spent so much more time with the Nkuhumas over the last few years, and we know them very intimately and kind of know their movements and know what they get up to, and have had some crazy experiences with them. But the interesting part about it is, while the Talamati pride we haven't spent much time with, and there's very few sightings we've had, they are related to the Nkuhumas. So if you like the Nkuhumas, at least you can say this is a family descendants and just another element of the pride, essentially. Ultimately out here, as prides get too large, they have to start splitting, and so it's not uncommon to see splits within prides. And so this is, like I say, we could consider this an extension of the Nkuhumas then. Maybe that will make you like them a little bit more. I don't know, but it'll be interesting also to see how much more time they spend here. I think because of the winter period, I think we're going to see them hanging around a lot more, particularly this northern sector. I wouldn't be surprised we get these guys coming in fairly regularly, particularly if we have herds of buffalo around and they follow the buffalo in, which is basically what's happened today. Is there was tracks for buffalo, and then these guys were on top of those tracks coming into Djuma. So I think if they're going to follow buffalo herds, we should see a lot more of them, which will be really nice. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they sometimes make an appearance, and if the Nkuhumas are nearby, if we get an inter-pride interaction, which I suspect is on the cards at some point. There's going to be a pride interaction at some point between the Torchwoods, Nkuhumas and Talamatis. They're all walking into very similar areas at the moment, and at some stage they're going to have to come to blows. It's pretty much the Nkuhumas, though, that are walking in everybody else's area, or they walking in their area. These guys particularly to the north, and like I said, the Torchwoods to the east. But where I saw the Torchwoods last night is where we saw the Nkuhumas less than 4 days ago. So, or maybe it's a little longer, 5 days ago. So there's going to be a blowout at some point. Hopefully it doesn't get too serious. There comes the injured lioness, just walking past. Shame girl. You see, she's walking absolutely fine, so she's okay. It's just a flesh wound. All right, we'll stay with these guys. I'm going to try to see if I can maybe get a slightly better view of them somewhere. And while I do that, let's let's send you back across to Dylan, who's probably got a magnificent view of his meerkats.
So I'm about to reveal what we'd found yesterday. But first I'm going to actually come back to where we found that little stone flake. And I just threw it, okay, here it is here. Sorry, I want to get my shadow on it. So there's that little stone flake that we found, and I just dropped it exactly where we found it yesterday. And I'll just, as a reminder for those of you who haven't seen it, this is a microlith. So it's a little stone flake. You know, this could be anything from 40,000 years to the present. Just going on how fine and how sharp it is. It's probably a little bit more recent, but I've got no idea of the exact age. But some of you may be wondering, well, did I not pick it up somewhere and just drop it here? But then while we got to the meerkats this morning, I've just found something else really cool, which kind of like substantiates that there could actually be an archaeological site close by here. But let's have a look. I'm going to put this back where we found it, and that can stay there, but come have a look with me. And this is just while we're ambling around here. On the ground here, and I'll move so I'm not in the shade there. So this stone lying here, which seems odd because it's completely out of place. There's just sand lying around us here. And again, it just looks like any other piece of stone at first glance. But actually, this is what we call a grinding stone. And I don't know how we're going to... Jean-Andre, you must help me there if you want to get a better angle. But this is actually used, would have been used historically for grinding, whether it's grass seeds. It could even have been used for sharpening arrow points, perhaps. If it's more recent, it could even be used for grinding up herbal, plants with herbal qualities out here. Things like aromatic plants, whether it would be for actually using it on your body for scent, or for actually smoking it as medicinal purposes. But the reason we say it's a grinding stone is, you see, the whole thing is rough. At every angle, it's just rough, it's broken. But then on this top face, it's incredibly smooth. And at the right angle, you can actually see it's hollowed out like it. So this particular item, it may have broken off. In fact, it's got quite a bit of wear along this edge, which tells me it may not actually have been broken off, and this could even have been a portable grinding stone, one that they carry as a small item. This is not very heavy. This is maybe, I don't know, a kilogram. This is would have been very, not even. This is so this probably weighs about a block of butter, a 500-gram block of butter. It probably weighs about not even 2 blocks of butter in weight. So it's very, very light, very easy to carry around. And this could have been well have been a portable grinding stone. And the fact that we're now linking this, and I'm going out on a limb by saying linking, it could be completely different time frame. But the fact that this is here, that is there, this is where it gets interesting. So obviously we always leave artifacts where we find them. We never take them out of the field. Again, I apologize, I didn't get the name, but I got the question. Jean-Andre's laughing there. But the question is, could it have been used by sand people? I would say 100% yes. Or whatever our interpretation of sand people is, but the traditional acceptance of them as the first people of these areas, it's probably very, very, very likely to have been sand, especially linking it with those stone flakes. And the importance of leaving, wherever you are in the world, the temptation is always there to, this is so cool, pick it up, take it home, leave it on a shelf. The problem with that is that in terms of archaeology, it's like getting this most amazing puzzle. You take it home and you start building it, but you find there's like 10 pieces missing. All of you know that. It's kind of like a letdown, like, geez, where are those missing pieces? And when we do our archaeological research on Tswalu, of which we've got a lot going on, to bring researchers up here and to be able to show them, they can start putting this together. But if I've put that little stone flake, that beautiful little, in my pocket, and I've taken it home. Suddenly it's lost to science. Where these things belong is where they are found. And that's actually where their value is. This is super cool, by the way. Wow. Sure. The history in this, to think that what we're looking at here could be tens of thousands of years older. But while we're pondering the incredible depth and age of the human history of these landscapes that we're in, head over to Tristan and see what they got.
We are pondering about our lions, just watching them and seeing who's here. Seems like there's, apparently, asking the other guys that were also here, they reckon 5 adult females here and 9 cubs. So same number as the Nkuhuma Pride. Actually, funny enough, not, which is also a bit of good news that I wanted to tell everyone. I forgot about this yesterday, but the Nkuhuma Pride on Singita, is all 7 were together. So that female that we saw on her own has rejoined the Pride, which is really interesting. They're saying that they saw 9 or 10 cubs, but I mean, we know of only 8. So I asked them if there was very, very tiny little ones there. So I'm waiting for Ross to get back to me about it, but I don't suspect that there is more than 8. I think it was just a bit of a miscount. But there's our stumpy-tailed individual that we were telling you about earlier. Shame, he's got his little tip of his tail's missing, so he doesn't have his little black bob on the back of the tail. He's just got a little kind of stumpy end to it, but it's cute. I think it adds some character. And I called him a little boy earlier, but it's actually a little girl. Sorry girl. Do you think it's cute though? I add some character. I always like animals that have something slightly different about them. I don't know why. I feel like they have character when they do. So it's like the wild dog that's currently on Londolozi that's missing one ear, or this where it's missing the tip of the tail. I don't know, it just adds something to them. It's a story behind their life and their ability to survive, and you know, the way things roll out in the wild is that, you know, you're going to have injuries and sometimes get hurt, but it is very, very cute, and it's very white at the tip of the tail. You know, you don't really notice it on normal lions because they have the black tuft, and you would think you know, that their tails are quite tawny, but they're actually quite white towards that tip just before the black part of it. Now, I believe the one male of the Birmingham Pride in Ngala. Now, kids, play nice. Also is missing the tip of his tail, so they can be tailless, tipless, tailless friends. No, but they're not tailless. Yes, exactly. They can call themselves the tipless band, or something like that. Anyway. What's really interesting to see is you can see a common thread through the 3 prides that we were discussing earlier. Because they're all related, there is definitely a genetic somewhere in this pride at one point that created very dark amber-colored eyes. So the Torchwoods are predominantly dark-eyed. There's very few, there's actually only one of them that has a light color set of eyes, a normal kind of honey color. But this pride has also got, I think there's 2 of them in this pride, or 3 of them, that have amber-colored eyes. Then we know in the Nkuhuma pride we've got amber eyes herself. So there's obviously a genetic in this particular lineage that comes from somewhere that brings about these deeper, richer, brown, yellow eyes that they've got, as opposed to normal lions. You know, I say normal lions, but normal prides in these low-felt areas generally have quite yellowish eyes, not so much that more sort of brown amber color. You do see it a lot in the Kalahari ecosystem, and in Botswana in the desert part. So if you're going to like Savuti and areas like that, a lot of the lions have quite a different look to the lions that we have here. I find that their Their ears are a different shape, and then their eye color is often a lot darker, and I'm sure it's to do with the amount of glare that they get off the sand, and especially when you go into areas where there's a lot of the salt pans and the lines that occur there. I'm sure their eyes have darkened due to that, whereas these lions here, typically a lot more shadowed areas. Maybe they have got a lighter eye, which will just help with allowing more light in and helping to see in darker conditions that they would experience here, as opposed to those more open locations. So it's interesting just to kind of see the differences between them, and to kind of pick up on the subtle changes between lions in different areas of operation. I know James always used to say that the lions up in Kenya and the Masai Mara have a very different look to the lions down here in South Africa. So, you know, I think they all slowly evolve to be able to function better in their area that they are, well, obviously live in over the years. So nice to see these guys, and looking in really good condition. You can see not a single spot of mange on any of them, which is really good news. So the pride itself looks really good, much like the Torchwoods yesterday. They also looked in fantastic condition as well. All right, now talking about condition, it sounds like David is still with the dark-maned avoca, who's been in a bit of a rough condition over the past couple of months with his limp, but it sounds like he's slowly getting better, and I'm sure he's going to look really good anytime he has a good meal, and I believe Dave's watching him having a little nap.
Morning. And it's brought back some memories of all the different lion experiences I've been fortunate enough to enjoy growing up out here. One memory of a big male lion that comes to mind is when I was a lot younger, not too far from here in the Manyeleti, just a few kilometers as the crow flies. A lion pride brought down a zebra right outside our house. They actually used the fence as a bit of a barrier to push the zebra up against. And they killed and ate it. We heard the commotion. We all got in my father's Land Cruiser. It was my father, my mother, myself and my brother in the vehicle. Drove out the gate and stopped at this lion pride. Just watched them as they tore through and ate that zebra. All those amazing vocalizations that you've heard. And we sat there for quite a long time with the headlights on. A couple hours later, it was time to go to bed, now very late at night. And my dad tried to start the vehicle and the battery was flat because the lights had been on for so long. And we sat there and we sat there and we thought, well, now we've got to wait for these lions to move. And they didn't move, and it was getting very late. It was getting very cold. And eventually my dad decided, well, he's going to have to try and slip out the vehicle and sneak off behind it and try and loop back to the fence, climb over and get inside to get the other vehicle to come fetch us. And he slowly opened the door, quietly snuck around the back, did a bit of a wider arc to get back to the fence, and one of the males heard him and stood up, slowly walked in that direction. My mother, very protective and also obviously terrified at that moment, shouted, "Hey, stop!" And the lion looked at us and it just kind of froze in its tracks, carried on staring into the darkness where my father was. He had obviously also gone dead still. You can imagine what he must have felt like in the darkness. He could see the lion in the lights. The lion couldn't see him, but the lion knew something was there. And we all held our breaths. The lion lay down as they do and just carried on staring in his direction. A few nerve-wracking moments later, we heard the fence clink as my dad got over the fence. Just made it. It was obviously a very close call. And he's managed to sneak over the fence without being detected. Went and got the other vehicle, came out, we all jumped through the windows, got in the other vehicle and went home. Just one of the many incredible memories that I'm privileged to recall from a youth and a childhood out here in the bush. Debbie saying that's one brave mom. Absolutely the bravest. Well, this has been just fantastic spending time with this dark-maned boy. Been a lovely morning with him. But we're not the only ones enjoying the bush. Let's send you over to Sean and a hungry elephant.
So indeed we are having a lovely morning, and we have managed to find our first animal. This beautiful, beautiful elephant. So we actually saw some more elephants down in the river, but we had a couple signal difficulties. This guy was just standing up here. These elephants are sort of bulk feeders. You know, they can eat leaves, they can eat bark, they can eat fruits, they can eat grass. And you can see this one is actually eating all the grass. You can see there in his mouth all the grass just sticking out the side. Now watch, because that bit there might just fall out of his mouth. Because you look at it very carefully, it's actually very interesting. All of that part that you can see there is the roots. You can see those little clumps at the bottom. So that's the soil, the sand. And it looks like all of the roots. And he just ate that. So I'm not going to tell you what I was going to say, because now that's not true anymore. but what happens is they're obviously very intelligent. And elephants only have a certain amount of teeth throughout their lives. So I believe they have 12 teeth throughout their lives. And it's 3 sets of 4. They got 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And so what happens, especially, you know, now as we're going into summer, it's getting very dry, it's getting very dusty. So these elephants, they're pulling the grass out of the ground. They're getting a lot of roots, and the roots obviously, as I said, covered in sand. And that sand wears away at their teeth. So very often you'll see the elephants either shake off the grass. So this one might do it, okay, not that time. If they pull out the roots, they shake it, they bang it against their legs or their chest. And they do that to try and shake off the sand so it doesn't wear away at their teeth, because then, you know, their teeth will obviously degrade a lot quicker and they might run out of teeth before they die. So very, very clever. Often they'll either, as I said, dust it off, or they will just not chew that part. They will eat the rest of the grass and let that sandy root bit just fall back down to the ground, and that's still protecting their teeth. And it's amazing how, you know, intelligent these animals actually are. But what also you can see happening here, as I said, he's eating the grass. Sarah, that is a lot of effort indeed. A lot of effort for breakfast. I mean, an elephant this size is probably eating a few 100 kilograms of food a day. And that's grass and leaves. So you must imagine how much grass you need to equal, let's say, 200 kilograms. It's a lot of grass, a lot of it. But that's why elephants, you know, we're looking at the lions now on Juma. These are animals, lions, that sleep 16, 17, 18 hours a day. You know, then you get an elephant like this that will sleep maybe 2 hours a day. You know, and even that 2 hours is not 2 consecutive hours. It's like half an hour, 15, 20-minute sessions throughout the day, throughout the night. And the other 22 hours, they're eating and drinking. So you can see this guy here, he's just going to carry on eating all of his grass, have a great time having his breakfast. So while we watch him eat, what we're going to do, send you over to Dylan at Tswalu Kalahari, where his meerkats have also gone off for breakfast.
So we're just following this meerkat meal walking around. Those of you who have joined me over the past couple of days have seen we've done had a couple of good sightings of these little guys. I just want to chat to you. As he's walking, he is super aware of our presence. I actually walked towards him just now and immediately turned. His antenna started going up and down, up and down, up and down, and then he went in the opposite direction. So he's very, very much aware of us. And then in terms of communication, that begs the question, well, how is he doing it? And there's different ways. Those antennae are super, super, super sensitive to the environment. And as a chemoreceptor, you know, they can be picking up chemical signals on the air. They can be picking up vibrations. And so anything, if you look at a cat, its whiskers are super sensitive. So feeling its environment, these guys can actually use their antenna in that same manner as well. You know, if you touch that antenna, immediately it'll back off. So I'm going to go a little bit closer. I'm not going to touch him. I just want to see, for you to be able to see how he reacts. So I'm now sitting about a yard. Look, I'm a yard and a half away from him, and immediately like was on his alert over there. I'm just going to go closer. You see his antenna, how they're going. Look there, look there, look. You see how he moves away. I'm posing no direct threat. Well, I'm not definitely, you know, I'm definitely not posing a threat to him. I have no intention of picking him up or grabbing him. But that's just a lovely demonstration of how sensitive they are to the environment. Even when I started walking around, he was onto it. No, okay, there's something going on here. I'm going to ask Jandre, if you don't mind, there's another one eating meerkat poop, it looks like, just on the other side of this bush. So we're going to leave this gentleman for a little while, and we're going to try walk around. Just bear with me for 1 second. We're going to try keep our shadow off him. See, try keep a shadow off him if you can. See that little one over there? He's actually eating something. And I thought it might be meerkat poop, but it might be something else. So let's go see, try get close and see what he's actually gobbling up. Because remember, they're omnivores, so they'll eat anything. Plant stuff, animal remains. Oh no! What is he eating? He's eating the remains. Yeah, he's eating what's left of a grasshopper. We had a brief look at a big grey grasshopper the other day, and he's actually eating the remains of a grasshopper. So I don't think this was a kill. These guys don't normally walk around killing things. They are capable of killing small things, obviously, but this looks quite old. So I think he actually found this already dead, and he's just feasting on what's left of it. This is so cool, eh? If you think this is going on every single day in every environment across the globe, not necessarily with armored ground crickets, but in your back garden there's these crazy instances of predation all the time. Susie, you think this is yum? I think this little current crick definitely thinks it's yum, because he's certainly tucking in there. I love the way he uses that back leg. In fact, when they fight, if you get rival males, they'll actually use those long back legs to actually try kick each other, to keep the distance. So he seems to be finishing up now. He's actually cleaning his mandibles now. So while he's doing his ablutions and cleanup, he's back feeding again. But while he's doing that, head over to Tristan, and I think his lion's also doing the ablutions now.
Indeed, Dylan, our lions have finished their breakfast, and it's really cool that you guys are getting to spend so much time with those armored ground crickets. They're amazing, amazing creatures. But I have to laugh because the other day, Landeka was directing, and she said armed cricket to us instead of armored ground cricket, and immediately my mind went to, and I have no idea why, those movies of like a Mexican gang with a bottle of very typical apple juice from that area, and a revolver, and a little bandana with a little moustache running around kind of shooting little grasshoppers. I don't know why it came into my mind, but it did. And so since then, every time we hear armored ground cricket, we have a giggle because of the armed cricket story. You can just imagine these little bandits of Tswalu running around with their little revolvers on their belt. Anyway, let's not go down that road too far. I know Emma's also saying it's ridiculousness, but Emma yesterday also said that there was a troop of balloons that were hassling the cheetah instead of baboons. So it's been an entertaining couple of days, as it's from updates from Tswalu. It seems like lots going on there. Armed crickets and troops of balloons harassing all the animals out that way. Makes for an entertaining couple of updates. Anyway, earlier I was talking about that. My pleasure, Emma, for throwing you under the bus. No problem. We get thrown under the bus all the time, don't worry. But we were talking earlier about that male lion with the little tip of his tail missing, and it was super interesting because I was talking about it. One of the guys that's in the sighting with me, who's one of the Buffelshoek landowners and has spent quite a lot of time with this pride, was actually telling me the story about this little this little lion. I keep calling it a male, but it's a female. And this little lion has got a really cool story behind it. They said the first time that they found this little lion, they found these kind of tracks on the road, and there was these tracks for lion tracks, and then this kind of odd drag. And so what the guys thought was that maybe a python had grabbed one of the lion cubs and was dragging it along the sand. But eventually they then tracked them down and they found this pride, and this little lion was there, and it looked like it was completely paralyzed from the hips down. So it actually was dragging its hips along and pulling itself. I think there's some photos somewhere. I remember seeing photos of this. I actually forgot about it until now. But it was dragging its hips along, couldn't walk, and everyone just wrote it off as this thing's going to die. It's not going to be able to make it. And now look at it. Now it's walking around. It's part of the pride. It still has a slightly ginger walk. But the fact that it's recovered from that is absolutely amazing. Now, I don't know if it was a very kind of early attack of white muscle disease that it somehow recovered from. So white muscle disease is a thing that is sometimes seen in lions when they get a deficiency of selenium, and they then lose the ability to use their limbs, particularly the back legs seem to go first, and it's a really horrible thing to see. And so it could be, and we have seen it in this area before, so it could have been maybe an attack of that, but it's quite strange because generally when cubs are getting nutritious milk and they're in a situation where the pride is in good shape, you don't normally see that developing, and none of the other members of the pride displayed those symptoms. But anyway, this little one has somehow come out of all of that and has survived, and like I say, is now a fully functioning member of the pride, healthy, looks good, it's in good condition, which is absolutely amazing to me. I think it's a phenomenal little story, and especially when you think about the hardships of what goes on out here, the number of hyenas, the number of other lions, a paralyzed lion with its back legs not working as a cub, the chances of its survival are minuscule. I mean, we're talking maybe 1% chance of survival, given what goes on out here. And yet it somehow made it through all of that. And it's testament to the pride and the mothers of those particular cubs, who must have sat and waited and given time to the little ones to move and to be able to catch up, and because it would have taken that little cub a lot of effort to drag its body around, and the fact that the females would have waited and made sure that little one was safe from hyenas and various other things is absolutely phenomenal. So it's a really cool little story. I'm so glad that the guys told me about it again, and it kind of has come back to my mind because it's a cool little animal to follow now. Andrea say thank goodness for that story. I know, it's cool, isn't it? I always like a happy story. I mean, we know that there's some hard stories out here, in the case of maybe even this impala, which unfortunately met its end this morning, which is not nice. It's always nice when there's a happy story, and to see a little lion against all odds make it is really cool. And I'm sure, and because it's got an identifying feature, it'll be a cool lion to follow going forward. All right, well, now that we've shared that endearing story about our little lion, let's send you across to a lot of conflict that sounds like taking place between Dewey, our hippo, and the buffalo herd at Gowrie Dam.
to come down to the Wet Yellow Dam. Watch this large herd of buffalo come down for a drink. Quite a large number of buffalo. Must be at least 80. Still some more at the back there. Lots of jostling and bellowing as they position for a drink of water. You can see the hippo there has moved up close. Perhaps we'll get some action as he protests against this large herd of bovines urinating in his bathwater. Every so often the buffalo turn and look. Ooh, here's a nice display of teeth. Menacing display. Telling them to get clear. He's very grumpy. Every so often the buffalo look off to our east, in the direction of where we've left that dark mane male. The wind is coming from there, so I'm sure they're picking him up on the wind every now and then when it gusts. And they look off in that direction. They seem a little bit perturbed. I'm sure they're smelling him. The smell of a lion often terrify a buffalo. Here he comes again. Laura Moore, he's saying that hippo's mouth looks as big as one of those buffalo. They do have a big mouth and huge teeth. He's now showing them who's boss. This is super cool. He's getting out completely. He's urinating there. Defecating. Marking that spot as his. Buffalo are all very inquisitive of this very funny looking animal. That was some super cool interaction. See him outside of the water like that. That is very unique. Heg, you're saying, wow, the buffalo don't look impressed. Well, they know that he can cause some serious damage, so they're keeping their distance. As I said, he's obviously taken quite a bit of offense to this herd coming down to drink. A little bit selfish on his part, but it is his home. Very interesting behavior. Very cool. What a super cool sighting of a hippo and buffalo. And a bit of grumpiness. It sounds like Tristan's lions are on the move. Let's send you back over to him.
Indeed, the lions are on a move now, and I'm just trying to get slightly ahead of them, and we'll get them all kind of walking past us. It's really nice to see the pride out in the open, and they're walking in such a nice spot. It's like the most open section of this area from the horrible thicket that we were in just now. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Hey guys. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 adult lionesses, but you can see the one in front with that wound. It's quite a sort of nasty looking wound, but I promise you it's really not too bad. She's, as you can see, walking absolutely fine, and that's nice and clean. It doesn't look like there's any maggots there or anything like that, and it's already starting to look like it's healing a little bit. There's a little bit of granulation, which is nice. This is the purple-eyed lioness. So in the Nkuhuma pride and in the Talamati pride, there's a lioness with a little purple eye, and here comes all the cubs from behind. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So here's the 9 of them coming this way. How cool is this walk by? I think they're off to Buffelshoek Dam for water. I think that's where they're going now. What's interesting though is that they haven't heard those buffalo at Gowrie Dam, and we're not far from Gowrie Dam. I would have thought that they would have picked up that sound, particularly because the wind is coming from the south, but it doesn't seem like they're all that interested. It seems like they're going to head more towards Buffelshoek Dam rather than go down towards Gowrie Dam. It's probably a little bit of a test of their territory. They don't want to go too far south. Ultimately for them, this is pretty far south already. So cool to see. But you can see the one without the tip of the tail. It's just in the front now. Just watch its gait compared to the other ones. You'll see that it's a little ginger on those back legs. The back legs don't quite go the same as the others, but yet still able to keep up and still able to be a part of the pride. So cool. Wasn't that amazing? It's just one open clearing in this block that I know of. It gets thick again as we drop down and move away, and so we got lucky there that they walked through this exact little open clearing. Alex, you say they've gotten so big? They have gotten bigger. The last time I saw them was in February on a wildebeest kill on one of my safaris, and I ended up seeing them in the long grass, but not really much else, and they have grown a lot since then already. Oh, there's still one behind us. They are a little bit shyer though than the Nkuhumas. They don't like to be followed as closely. So what I'm trying to do is just give them a wider berth when we try to get ahead of them. So I try and go a little bit further away than I would with the Nkuhuma pride. Just give them a little bit of respect. Ultimately, they're not as relaxed with the car, and so what you don't want is to stress them out. And so when you see them kind of looking at you or hunkering down or anything like that, then you know that you're a little on the close side. So better just to go a little bit further. The nice thing with so many lions is that you typically can find them fairly easily. It's not like a leopard where you know, a lot harder to follow through these areas. These guys much easier. But they're marching straight towards Buffelshoek Dam. It's going to be so nice this afternoon if they go onto that dam wall. It'll be very pretty. Problem is we're going to probably lose signal fairly shortly down this hill. The signal is not great on the other side of this little crest. Oh, nice though, isn't it? What a productive morning we've had from a lion front this morning. Good. We're going to stay with these guys. We're going to just follow them for a little bit until I see where they lie down. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you across to David with what we think these guys were hunting last night and what I'm sure they would love to be eating right now.
Well, Mr. Hippo is still as grumpy as ever. The buffalo came down again to try and get another drink, and he is just not having it. Giving huge yawns, showing the size of those teeth. Menacingly moving around, showing the huge size. Leaving no doubt in the buffalo's mind that they should steer clear. much cool hippo interaction. It's just been a phenomenal sighting. It's been a phenomenal morning. Spending time with the dark mane, and now watching these buffalo come down to drink while our hippo grumpily protests, showing his enormous teeth. It's been a stunning morning out here in the bush. The sunshine is glimmering, birds are singing, and we are absolutely loving it. Until this afternoon, that's a cheers from BK and I.